Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to always give you tips on finances and how to go about finances. But there are four things that majority of people will actually never do, will not do. They will hear and just smack and then do the opposite. And the first thing is the advice of do not buy your first car on debt. When you tell people do not buy your first car on debt, when people are excited about the prospect of owning their first car, many think that you just want them to postpone the pleasure of acquiring a car. You do not want them to seem like they are flourishing and enjoying life. So majority of people will not follow this advice. Majority of them will actually not. And why do I say this if I know majority of people will not? Is because there's a very small percentage that will listen to it and do it. And the reason I always say don't buy your first car on credit is because of this. Majority of people who take loans for their first car is probably the first biggest purchase they ever make in their lives. So if your first biggest purchase that you make on your life is on something that is giving you an emotional high, because remember, if it is your first car, you are excited about the prospect of being a car owner, you're excited about the prospect of enjoying long, endless road trips, going into the sunset and all. You have romanticized the idea, you're too excited about it, and so you are most likely going to do several mistakes as regards to buying your first car. The first thing, you're going to overestimate your need for a car. You're going to buy a bigger car than you actually need. So you're going to buy more expensive. You're going to buy four-wheel with all these capabilities, with the latest gadgets, probably newer, and it will be actually much more than you, one, need, and two, can afford to pay. The next thing is, at that point, you have probably not understood the full extent of car costs. Buying a car is not just the payment that you make monthly. You're going to pay for insurance, which is 4% of the value. You're going to pay for fuel. You're going to pay for insurance. You're going to pay for repairs in this vehicle. You're going to have social cost associated with you owning a car. Now people are going to expect you to bail them out, to give them some money, to help them when they are in financial trouble. These are costs that come with buying a car. And if all the math that you did was whether you can make a payment. In fact, you look for those financial advisors or people who give loans, who come around and look for people to give money to, and they told you you can get a loan and pay this amount, which is equivalent to 60% of your salary or 50% of your salary, and somehow it was passed, even though you should never take debt that is more than 33% or a third of your net income. But because these people will never tell you, you take a loan that is bigger than 30%, but these other associated costs that you had never factored kick into the budget, and you end up losing more than half of your salary to a car purchase. And it is your first car, so there are several things that will change. So you'll have to change places where you live, because you were probably living somewhere where there was no parking, because it was never a consideration when you were buying a car. You're going to move to a neighborhood that is going to be more expensive, because that is where your car will be safe. You're going to incur additional costs, household costs, because of the location that you have moved to. So food costs will go up. Where you take your children will go up. All these costs will go up because you have acquired your first car. So if it is on debt and you never quite put together all the costs associated to it, then it will drive you down a financial pit, a financial hole that is going to take a long time before you uproot yourself from that financial pit. Majority of you will not listen to that advice. They will actually blow away this advice and think about other things. But I'm not doing it so that I deny you the opportunity to own a car. I just don't want you to enter into a financial hole very early in your financial journey because of something that excited you, but you never did all the mathematics. When you buy it debt-free, means that you saved the money, so you waited long enough, so you're able to make the decision on which car and how much, because it was limited to how much you have saved. Then it is a cash that you already have in your pocket that you buy it cash off the pocket, off the bat without any debt, so that the only cost you are going to incur is maintenance and fuel and all these things. Then the other thing, you are most likely going to be very realistic on which type of car you are going to buy, because it's from your pocket. You're not going to buy a 4 million car, because you will have to save 4 million. It may take longer than you anticipated. So you will find yourself getting a 1 million going down, and so it is a car that you are not going to be too emotional about. It is a car that you are not likely going to do extreme adjustments on your life that are going to increase the cost. You're not going to move into a too fancy neighborhood because your car is not too fancy. You're not going to take the most expensive insurance in the most expensive insurer just because of the premium that it brings, simply because you have a premium car. You're most likely going to take a third-party insurance, and you're going to drive carefully, and you're going to do all these things because, again, you are not putting too much pressure on yourself financially. Then the next thing that I advise people, but majority will never follow. Majority will never follow. And if you follow, please comment down in the comment section and say, I do this and it has worked for me. The second one is save and invest 50% or more of your net income. The reason I say 50% or more of your net income, especially if you are employed, is because you never know when you might be needed or not needed. You are only one phone call away from being told it's been real, either the company is not working out, or you and we, the organization, are not working out, or somebody of ill will decides to chase you so that they can promote somebody to your level that they like. You're only one opportunity away from being jobless. And if all the money that you've been making, you have been eating, your savings rate is zero, then when the inevitable happens, you go back to your parents. You of old age, you who has matured, an adult, you put your tail behind or between your legs and go back to your parents. You who are trying to live large and show everyone how you are doing well will have to swallow your pride, take on the shame, go back to your parents, where they will be looking at what time you've come in and what you're doing and you who you're hanging out with, because you are still a child under your parents' roof. The unfortunate thing is, if you have a family, it becomes even harder, because if your child asks you for sweets and you don't have money to pay for it, simply because you have nothing, it is painful as a husband, as a father, when you are unable to take care of your family because of lack of finances, because of loss of a job. It is a terrible situation to be in. Becoming desperately poor just because you did not use your resources effectively is something you should not be doing. It's something that should not happen to you. So if you're going to save 50% or more, save and invest. Not just save, not put under your mattress. You put it in somewhere that is generating some income. You might actually in 7 years be financially independent, meaning that if you are going to earn a modest 10%, 12%. In 7 years, you will be generating, if your income is consistent through all those 7 years, you're going to generate the money that you need to survive from your passive means. Meaning, after 7 years, if your expenses do not increase and if the interest rates persist at 10%, 12%, then you'll be able to pay all your expenses from your pocket, from out, not from your salary, but from your passive income means. Just think about it. If you work because you love to work, not because you have to work, not because you have to pay bills, your bills are already taken care of by the interest that you earn on your investments, by the rent that you collect from your investments, and so investments. Just think about it. You start working at 25, and at 32, if you are tired of your workplace, you can walk away for a year, 2, and not need to go back to your parents because your income is self-generating from your investments. That is what financial independence becomes to you. But majority of people will never do this. Why? The temptation to eat money, to enjoy the resources that they have, to even get into debt, not even saving 50% or more, even in using more than 110% of their salary. They're even taking advances, they're taking credit cards. Majority of people will do that instead of reducing their expenses significantly to 50% of their income and investing the 50% or more. Majority of people will never do that. We are so tempted to show people how we are doing well. We are so tempted to enjoy a few finer things in life. We are so tempted to show everyone that we are doing better than we even actually are doing. We are very tempted to show the flowery things in life, and we are too tempted to keep up with the Joneses to do this thing. Invest 50% or more of your income. Even if majority will know that in 7 years or so they will be financially independent, where they can spend their salary as they wish and they will still have more than enough for their needs, majority still will not be able to do it. That is the thing about human nature that I would never understand. That you know it, but you still would not do it. The next thing that most likely people will never do, especially African people, is go for therapy because of your money traumas. There are so many traumas affected with the way you handle money. Let me just show you a small example. If you grew up in a household that was extremely poor, you are desperately poor, you did not have more than enough, you end up being a hoarder who wants to either acquire a lot of assets and have a lot of things around him because you could never get a bicycle because your parents were not well off. So you start buying many gadgets and toys and surrounding yourself with many toys and gadgets, overspending all your money to get the safety of feeling that you have money, because you are not secure in who you are, not on what you have kept in your house. If you're the kind of person who wants to show people that you are now doing better because of your emotional trauma of lack of money, that you want to tell people, I am doing better now, I'm not the poor person that you grow up saying, we are now doing well, then the financial trauma of wanting to show others that you are doing well will always haunt you. And no matter how much you know about saving and investing, and no matter how much I talk about saving and investing, you will never go as far as saving and investing, growing your wealth, and setting up your children better off than where you took off. That means that if you started life with debt and with all these financial struggles, having to take care of your siblings and your relatives and all these things, that now your children can be able to start life without having to take care of anyone, without having to incur any black tax and such other things that are going to weigh down them financially. So in spite of knowing that, you still find yourself doing this. It's because of traumas. And unless you work on yourself and get to some psychological help, psychosocial support to help you synthesize what happened to you and how it affects you and how you can move past this trauma to be able to handle money like a normal individual and to be able to handle what power or money makes you feel and what money makes you do because of your previous past traumas, then you will never move forward. So you know that you need the support, you need the psychological counseling, but you will never follow it because you do not want to do this. So a lot of people will not do that, especially people who, when you become vulnerable to an individual who is not your friend or your spouse, people cannot do that. And despite knowing that it will help you, majority of people will never follow this advice, even though it will help them be able to move past their traumas. Because no matter how much successful you are, if you are still suffering a traumatic item, it will always be traumatic unless it is addressed. So a lot of people will want to still hide and deny the fact, and they would not want to share the intimate details of these things because they do not want to work on themselves. The biggest challenge for any person is any challenge that they have to initiate on themselves. People will always have opinion of others. People will always want to advise others, but they will not want to sit down, evaluate themselves, criticize themselves, and say that in this I'm not doing well, I need help. That is the most difficult thing to do. So that's why majority of people will never do it. The next thing The next advice people will never follow about money is talk about money while in courtship. People have a lot of time to talk about sausages. People have a lot of time to talk about this and that. Things that are okay, but they're not necessary towards the making of a marriage. Talk about money and not just brush money and say, oh, I want to buy a house, or I want to buy this. Superficial conversations about money. People don't want to have deep conversations about money. People don't want to talk about it and dissect it, even though it may be painful to some, even though it may be shameful to others, even though it might be uncomfortable to others. Talking about it, how much debt do you have? How much do you handle money? What is your current expectations? Where do you need to pay? What are the expenses you need to pay? Because the thing is, if you follow somebody's money or somebody's bank statement or somebody's transactions, they will know what they value, what is shackling them or keeping them poor. You will know what is making them flourish, and you will know where the problem is. And so people don't want to talk about money, because when you get into a deep dive about money, you really know the character of a person. In fact, I always say, show me your money and I will show you a character. I will know who you are based on what you spend your money on, how fast you spend your money, and what you treasure and value as regards to the purchases that you make. So a lot of people will not talk about money when they're in courtship. A lot of people get into surprises when they enter into marriage. After the wedding day, they start getting surprises that are not flowers. They start getting into nasty surprises when debt collectors start calling. When the person who was taking you on fancy dates and exciting you while dating you can no longer sustain such expenses, because that was a made up lifestyle, and because they never talked about money, you are never at grasp with what money entails. After infidelity, money issues are the next common cause of problems as regards to marriage. In fact, it should be a deal breaker for most people if they cannot come together as regards to money, or talk about money and come into agreement on how to handle money. They should not be together, because it is going to be the next biggest problem after infidelity that is going to affect and rock your marriage. My friend, it is better to have a broken engagement than to have a broken marriage. There are going to be children, there are going to be families, there are going to be much more than the two of you involved that is going to be painful. Remember, marriage is like two people who are glued together. If you tear them apart, there is going to be injury on both sides. It never comes out nicely. No matter how cordial they look, there will always be the pain, there will always be the disappointed, there will always be the anguish, and there will always be the trauma associated with divorce. So if you do not want to get to that level, talk about money. But majority of people don't want to talk about it. It is not romantic. It is not exciting. If you can't initiate such conversation about money, then it begs the question, who are you marrying, or what are you hiding? If you cannot initiate yourself, then enter into some class, maybe some premarital class that talks about money, or talk to a couple that you admire and let them unpack the whole issue about money. Because not talking about money is one of the surest ways of getting into problems in your marriage. Because remember, when children come, children can make you come closer as a family, but they also make you draw apart as regards to money, because they go to dad think this about money, or this about these expenses. Mom thinks this other way. You are not together. They will find the rift and they will drive you apart, because you have to be together as regards to money. That is one value that should be a deal breaker to most of the people who are dating. But because people don't talk about it, they don't want to be told to talk about it, they don't want to consider having that conversation, majority of people will enter into marriage having an incompatible partner as regards to finances. I hope you're learning, you're growing, and you become better in your financial affairs. Remember to like this video, to share it among your friends, and especially on people who you think will not want to follow these advices, so that somehow it might convince them to make the right decision that will help their financial future. My name is George Kingoria, online finance guy. Thank you and enjoy your